Welcome to the Ride This Out podcast, where we talk about how to improve your mental health and strengthen your connection to nature and your community, all through one simple solution: the bicycle. My name is Zach Golding, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and mental health therapist. I'll be your host as we discuss the power of pedaling. All right, in this week's session, I talked to the creator, the influencer of the account Dad Mode Wheelie Gang. His name is Liam, showcasing so many people's skills on the big wheel BMX bikes. I talk about it in this session. I have one of these big wheel BMX bikes, the 29er, and I'm telling you, it's the funnest bike that I have. If you've ever thought about getting one or looked into it, I found one used on a marketplace ad, and man, best decision I ever made. I love riding this bike. And he talks about his learning of riding these bikes and specifically learning the wheeling aspect of it and how he's just connected so much with the bike life culture and giving back to that culture and trying to showcase it in a positive and uplifting way. So he's doing a great job. So give him a follow. Within this session, he talks about so many lessons learned, finding balance in your life, finding that flow, resiliency, and just learning new things. So thank you so much, Liam. It was awesome to have you on. I learned a lot. I know that other people listening to this will also pick up some things. So appreciate the listens. If you like this, go ahead on the major platforms and like, subscribe, all those good things. Appreciate it. Share it with others and enjoy this week's session with Liam. All right, I wanted to welcome in Liam from Dad Mode Wheelie Gang. I came across Liam's stuff on Instagram. He's got some awesome content, so I was really excited to have him join me on the show today. Liam, if you could just introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, just all those good things, and
Sure.
what you do, how you got into biking, though, as well.
All right, perfect. So, hi everyone. My name is Liam. I am 48 years old. I live in Northern California, outside of Oakland in the East Bay. So, I'm in the foothills of Mount Diablo. And originally, I was born and raised in Hawaii, where I grew up surfing, and I was a water kid. And I didn't really ride bicycles very much, except between the ages of second grade and fourth grade, where I had a rusty old mongoose BMX that I got at a garage sale for 25 bucks. And I just used it to bicycle back and forth to school. And then on the weekends, I would go to 7-Eleven. And that was the extent of my riding. All I wanted to do was surf when I was in Hawaii, because that's what the popular kids were doing. And so, anyway, now I'm 48, and I kind of restarted my cycling journey as an offshoot because when I got into my college years, I found motorcycling, and motorcycles very much reminded me of surfing, but on the street. So I wanted to go fast, and I was always in the mountains trying to tear it up. And then I got into racing and racetracks, and it took me to Europe, and I had a beautiful 20-year career related with motorcycles. First as a mechanic, repairing them, and then doing logistics and working on a race team in Grand Prix with Ducati. So I had a very fun time with motorcycles. And then by the time I hit my 30s, well, I guess my late 30s, I came back to the United States, and I got into the corporate world. And I spent the last 15 years pretty much in the corporate world, uh, not eating very healthily and not exercising, and and just really doing what I could to support my family, because now I was finally in a position where I was making decent money, and we had a little family, 2 kids and a wife, and certain expectations. And I would travel for work, and I would eat these big heavy dinners, and I'd drink a bit with my clients, and I just wasn't as strong and as healthy as I could be. So fast forward to 2019, the year before the pandemic hit, and I was at the peak of where I would say I was in my sales career in healthcare and IT. And I should preface and say that I'd been smoking since I was in high school. So I was a smoker through high school, through college, and really when I lived in Europe, I was a chain smoker, and I quit smoking in 2019. So that was a major deal, um, because I'd just done it for so long, and I don't know why I didn't quit earlier, but my daughter actually caught me smoking when I was driving my car, and she pointed at me out the window, and she started crying because she said the smoking was going to kill me. So
Mhm.
anyway, I quit smoking and started vaping. And so I vaped for about 6 months, but I used that as a way to taper down the nicotine level. Um, so Christmas came around of 2019, and I was like, oh no, my mom is coming to visit, and I can't deal with my mom and her talking to me about smoking or vaping or anything. So I just quit. I literally quit on one day, and I've never looked back. Uh, so my mom comes to visit. I'm not smoking or vaping. I'm feeling pretty good, and we had a great visit. She went back home, and I spent a couple of months just thinking, oh, you know, life is going to get better. I'm going to start getting healthier, and February rolls around of 2020. I had a couple of work trips, and I came back, and because I'd been out of the house for about 2 weeks that month on work trips, my wife was like, "Hey, you're going to have to take your daughter to her basketball game." My daughter was in middle school at the time, so I drove. I think we drove almost an hour to a different neighborhood, and I drop her off so she can play her basketball game. And typically I'd be out in the parking lot having a cigarette or something, but I'm out in the parking lot, and I saw this little kid. He looked like he was 12 years old, just popping up these monstrous wheelies, and he was swerving and cutting back and forth, and he just looked like he was dancing out there on the bike. And it was like I got hit by lightning. I was like, holy smokes. Why haven't I learned how to do this before? I spent so many years riding motorcycles, but I never learned how to wheelie on a motorcycle. I certainly never knew how to wheelie on a bicycle. And now I'm seeing this little kid, this little rugrat, just tearing it up. And I whipped out my phone. I started taking video of him. I still have that video. And I just remember going, holy, like, tons of expletives of like, God damn, this little kid is like killing it. So I immediately jumped on YouTube. I'm like, what the hell kind of bike is this? Who are these kids? What is going on, right? I'd never seen anything like this. I come to find out that the movement that these kids are part of, or they're seeing, is called bike life. And it's one word, bike life. And on YouTube, I found a ton of videos of large packs of kids just riding through different cities, predominantly on the East Coast. Uh, and so they're taking over all the lanes, and they're swerving with cars and buses, and they're doing tricks on the seats. And I was floored. I was like, holy smokes, how has this been something that's been around for a couple of years? And I'd never even heard of it, in my kind of sheltered world, my adult world, right? I was 44 at the time. So, I watched those videos that night after I got home. And the very next day at the end of work, I rushed to the bike shop, my local bike shop, and I immediately bought a bike that day. And I remember I took pictures, right? I put it on Instagram, like, I got a brand new bike, right? Like, I haven't bought a bike in, it had been like almost 20 something years. And even then, I didn't put in the kind of mileage on my previous bikes the way I would on this bike that I got in 2020. And, uh, and that kind of started my journey. I didn't just want to ride bicycles to get healthy. I wanted to learn how to pop a wheelie, and I wanted to learn some of these tricks. And part of it was because, and I mentioned this earlier, neuroplasticity was a term that I'd come across because I have a special needs son, and I'm always interested in different things that challenge him and can help him grow. And so, one of the things I'd come across was this idea that you can teach your mind new mental pathways when you try and learn something new. So if you have like a debilitating injury where maybe you lose some of the nerves, to your arm, or you can't do something quite so well, you can come back from that through training, and you can teach your mind how to do new things and learn new things. And it's I'm not an expert by any means, but I just know that I have a lot of perseverance and crazy willpower, and I didn't care how much I was going to crash because I was going to learn this. And I did have a couple of good crashes. Nothing, major. I never went to the hospital or anything. You fall on your butt and then, maybe you'd have another injury and you land on the seat wrong or whatever. And you're kind of, shuffling around for a couple of weeks and it's painful to sit. But for the most part, uh, I was just convinced that I would learn how to wheelie pretty quickly. And boy, it it's eye opening how much uh, core strength and how much shoulder strength and all these different muscles that you don't think you would use, right? I knew how to do push-ups and I know how to exercise in my house and just general fitness. I thought, okay, this is fine. I should be able to handle this. But the first couple of weeks you end up getting really sore because you're yanking and pulling and you're off time and you're kind of fighting yourself and you're not flowing correctly. And I guess the way that it worked out for me was the more you practice these things where you need to have split second reflexes, the more the time slows down a little bit and you get more comfortable being in that split second. And the beauty of it is when you're in that zone, you're not thinking about anything else. And it's addictive to be in that space because it's quiet, right? There's no work phone calls, there's no emails, there's no wife or kids asking you questions. You're just literally in this balance zone, this pocket uh, where everything smooths out. And if anybody has tried to learn how to wheelie and you finally get to the point where you start wheeling, you'll know that in the beginning you're fighting for it and you're chasing that wheelie. You pop the wheel up and you start pedaling and you pedal faster and faster and faster and then the wheel drops and you're like always chasing this wheelie accelerating because you in the back of your mind you don't know that you can just relax a little and lean back just a tiny bit further and just have your brakes. And when you get to that point, that balance point, everything gets easy and smooth. All of a sudden, it doesn't feel like you're pedaling very hard. You're not sweating. You're not busting your body. You're just in this sweet spot. And and then after a while of being in the sweet spot, you learn that there's different places within the sweet spot that you can move the bike around it. So it's levels and progression. And it's the kind of thing where my coworkers thought I was crazy when I said, "Hey, I gotta go. I have wheelie practice this afternoon." And they're like, "What are you talking about? Like, who wants to learn how to wheelie in their mid 40s? Like, are you crazy? Like, what do you want to? Are you trying to hurt yourself?" In the back of my mind, this was all part of a longer term plan that I'm going to get good at learning how to wheelie on a bicycle, and then I'm going to move to motorcycles because this is something that I'd always fantasized about doing, but I never did anything about it because it always seemed like it was so far fetched that why would I ever have the time to do this? Why would I ever, put months into learning something um, that is just a trivial, bike trick, right? I see mountain bikers all the time, and they can manual and they can wheelie, and more impressively, they can do these big jumps. And I can't jump to save my life. Uh, I've tried, and I always get injured. But but I just felt that if I don't start to learn now, it's one of those now or never things. So I was determined to learn how to wheelie. It took me 4 months to learn how to wheelie for 1 minute straight, and I would use all these different markers. Right, I was convinced that as a business professional, we track metrics for everything. Right, and without metrics, if you can't track something, then you can't measure progress, whether you're moving forwards or backwards. So I had that mentality in mind when I was learning. And it was so gratifying to see that every week I could go a little bit further. I would use these parking lot spaces. There's a local community college near me. And so I have these big empty parking lots because during COVID, there was no school. So I had these huge long parking lots and I would try and pop my wheelie at the same place every time as I'd practice, and I'd go, okay, I made it 13 spots, and this time I made it 29 spots, and I would record this stuff, right, because I was tracking my progress. I'd be like, oh my god, I made 65 spots this week. So having this progress was very, very good for me mentally because I could see that things were improving, and every couple of weeks I would have like this other epiphany of, oh, if I do it this way, I can improve because my body position, if I hold myself in this way, it makes it easier for me to, manage my balance. Or, oh, I see the kids are doing it this way online. That's because they're very advanced. But for me, it's more difficult because, when you're dimensionally larger, you have to carry your weight slightly differently. So some tricks are not quite as possible as a full-size adult as what you see the kids doing. But for the most part, I'm a big believer, and I've seen this proven out that I have videoed kids that are 60 pounds popping wheelies on full size bikes, right? The bike is 35 pounds. And then I've seen guys that are 300 something pounds that are popping wheelies as well and jumping. So it really is how you manage your own balance. And so my journey of learning was one of like self-discovery on how I can conquer this new skill, and it gave me a purpose, and it gave me something to do after work during the pandemic, because I was going crazy in the daytime. Um, Both my kids were home from school. Every hour I had a different work meeting, or every 30 minutes, and every hour I try and make sure my kids were reading or doing something positive, or what are we having for lunch. So having my kids underfoot while we were all stuck at home was difficult because I just felt so constricted. I felt trapped. And so the ability to get out after work and just jump on my bike. My wife would get home from work and I would immediately say, "Okay, I'm going riding." Like, "You're here, you can be with the kids, I'm out." And she'd be like, "Why are you off? Like, where are you rushing to?" Like, and I would say, "Well, I've been stuck here all day. At least you went out, you got to go to work. You got to go, see your patients and talk to people. I've been stuck here on the phone or on the computer just talking to these two kids. I got to get the heck out of here." and and I just loved getting away because everything got quiet. I would put my music in, little headphones, and I live in a fairly quiet rural area, so if there's not a lot of people to disturb me or distract me, I can go out and I can ride for a long time without really seeing too many people, and I would just work on my tricks, and it was fantastic. And then I thought, you know what, while I'm documenting all this stuff, while I'm learning everything, I wanted to start sharing it out and teaching other people. So that became a focus of mine for the last couple of years, actually. And so my Instagram is Dad Mode Wheelie Gang, and it's just a collection of tutorials on different tricks and different things like tech tips on how you can maintain your bike. And it's a vlog in that whenever I go to a different city or a different place to ride my bike, in a ride out or a big group, I document that. And it's also became a place where I've showcased hundreds of different riders from around the country, and that's actually brought me a lot of joy in that I get to go out. People know who I am, so they're very, they'll do tricks in front of me. They want to be on film, right? The kids love being recognized. So I get to see a lot of talented riders, and I'll film their tricks. And sometimes we talk about it, or sometimes I just show them doing their tricks, and it's a wonderful way to share the joy that collectively we all have for riding. You know, I have thousands of followers, and they just want to see people having fun on their bikes. I think that's the bottom line, and I love showing that. So it works out very well for me. And sometimes people say, "Well, why do you always post videos of other people?" And it kind of took me a moment to realize that most of the people that are on social media share themselves only, right? You see it on a lot of, like, you go to somebody's page and it's just, 1,000 pictures and videos of them. And that's not my personality. I always thought, we need to build our community, and show the good that bike life can do, because unfortunately, we don't have the best track record uh, in terms of how we operate in the public eye or the public sphere. So that's another thing. So I ride a big BMX bike. Uh, the bikes have 29-inch wheels for the most part, right? Or 26 or 27 and a half. But I ride a 29-inch big BMX bike, and it's a single speed, and it weighs about 34 to 35 pounds. Uh, it looks just like the BMX bikes that you would have had as a kid, but oversized. And people think that, oh, you can only ride tricks on those bikes, or you can't really ride distance. Well, we can, and we've proven it. Earlier this year, we did about 275 miles in 5 days, riding through Los Angeles from downtown Los Angeles out to the coastline in Santa Monica, and then down the coast into Tijuana, Mexico, and then through Tijuana up and over those mountains. And I did this with a group of 20 of us made it through Mexico. Um, and it was a very challenging ride because at the end of, just getting from Laguna Beach down to San Diego was like an 80-mile day, which for a roadie, right, a road cyclist, 80 miles is not gonna kill you. But when you're on a single speed heavy bike, it's a kind of different story. And it's like taking out a big truck, that's only got like two speeds. You're just like, ugh. But it's fun. And I was actually really amazed at everybody, that made it on our trip, because I thought we'd have more people kind of falling off by the wayside. Since that trip earlier this year, I now have a guy that's consistently doing 50-mile rides and doing 100-mile rides on his big BMX. So I know that the mileage is definitely possible. And we're seeing more people that are doing this for long distance fitness, rather than just, popping wheelies in a parking lot. So the other thing I wanted to bring up around the big BMX bike is, when I think about cycling for me, I don't call myself a cyclist, even though, by every definition of the word, I am. Do I ride a bike several days a week? Yes. Do I wish I didn't have to work so I could ride my bike more? Yes. Do I have multiple bikes? Yeah, one bike turned into 10 bikes, right? It's just like, oh my God, what the hell? So, um, I'm a cyclist by every sense of the word, but I kind of fell in love with my style of riding because I don't feel like I have to dress up. There's no there's no costume, or there's no outfit. Uh, I ride in a t-shirt. I ride with no shirt. I ride in a tank top. I ride in long sleeve shirts, usually shorts. I have one pair of bicycle specific pants that I won in a raffle from Christian Pfeffer and Zoic Clothing, which is a really nice pair of pants. They're mountain bike pants. They're a little snug on like my calves because I got big calves, but I just love that I can ride in anything. The only thing that I really consistently wear outside of my regular clothes is I wear a helmet. I wear a mountain bike helmet, which is not very BMX at all, but I just like the adjustment uh, screw thingy on the back of the helmet. It's got MIPS, and I won't compromise on my protection for my head because my my family counts on me, and my coworkers count on me, and my coworkers' families count on me. So, because of my position and role in my business life, I just don't want to take any chances, or limit my chances of having a brain injury. So I wear a helmet. I'll usually wear one glove, because I usually have one hand on the bike, and I don't wear a glove on my left hand because that's the hand that uses my phone. I use that to film people. So I kind of mismatch, and I only use one glove. And then I wear a nice pair of, I got a couple of pairs of shoes from Vans BMX for Christmas a couple years ago, which was super nice of them. They sent me four different styles of shoes to see which I'd like, and and their shoes are great for casual riding, and the tricks that I do, they're wonderful. So yeah, it's very simple for me. I can finish work, I can just jump on in a pair of shorts, and I'm out. Right, I get on my bike, and I don't have to take it anywhere special because I'm not, every day it's not a 50-mile ride. It's literally I can just get out in front of my house and go riding and get on the street. And I can ride on the sidewalk, or I can ride in the street. Uh, and I think that's where I try and showcase the positive aspects of, we're out there to have fun and have exercise, but we don't need to be terrors in the street. And that's the part that I alluded to, that, we might not have the best reputation in the public eye, because typically when people think of bike life, they think of these large groups, these massive mobs that are on bicycles, and they're going in and out of cars, and they're swerving, cars and buses, and it's just, it's a little bit of mayhem. And for me, it's a kind of healthy counterculture, right? This is an anti-car movement, uh, right? It's a we're here movement. Um, but the kids don't really understand that. They just know that they can do whatever they want when they're in a group that size. So, uh, early on, right, my coworkers are like, "You want to learn how to wheelie? You're crazy." And then a couple months later, they're like, "Wait a minute, you're going on these group rides where they get on the freeway, or they're crossing over the bridge, or you're in that mob, and you're crazy." And I had to step back talk to my wife about it. And it's not that I want to be a part of these hooligans that's doing it to impede traffic, right? We don't take over a freeway to impede traffic, or I don't, at least. But I came to the realization that you cannot change that tide unless you're willing to get in the water. So
Mm,
for me, I'll ride within my limits and I'll ride to the edge of the road if I am in a group that's doing something like that, because I need to show the kids that you can be a part of it, but you don't have to be doing the wrong things while you're in it, right? You don't have to stop at a gas station and rob the gas station, if you need snacks because you don't have any money, right? You can ask if, one of the adults will buy you something if we need to. And so sometimes, that's what I'll do. We'll have a big stop, and instead of buying one or two waters or Gatorades for myself, I'll just buy a case of water and leave it outside, and all the kids can grab a bottle of water, and we move on to the next spot. So part of my mission, besides teaching people about bike tricks and maintenance and teaching people about who we are in bike life, is to also kind of guide the kids by just being an example of, here's an adult with a stable job that enjoys riding, and he's riding for healthy reasons. I'm not there to show off or try and get sponsored, or you know just be a little terrorist in the street. It's far more meaningful for me to just have fun on my bike. And I loved going to these big ride outs once a month. We used to have a huge one in the Bay Area once a month, in 2020 and 2021 and a little bit into 2022. And they just kept getting bigger and bigger until finally they got a little bit unmanageable, right? You have 1,000+ bicycles that are stretching out for several blocks, and everywhere you go, right, the traffic has to stop because cars get so mad when we go through a red light, and we'll take a couple of minutes to get everyone through the red light, but they have no idea how much worse traffic would be if we actually stopped and then let a couple of bikes through when the light turned green, and then stopped and let a couple more through. It's just, I mean, the studies prove that when you have a big mass of people like that, hundreds of people on bicycles, it's just faster to let them go through. And I've been to events where cars have gotten into altercations with the bikes and other bikers, and the bikers have knocked out all their windows and busted their mirrors off, and things have gotten pretty heated. And depending on the community, they've gotten more violent, in both directions. And I try and do my part to just not let that happen. Right? We try not to escalate in those situations, and focus on de-escalating. My mentality is always just keep moving, keep it moving. Right? If we get into a situation where you start shouting at a car, they're shouting at you. Number one, you're never going to win against a car. They will mow you down. That's if they're not carrying something in their car that could shoot you down, right? So it's never really worth it to challenge a vehicle. And the reality is, we have to think like we're a school of fish, or a motorcyclist. If you just keep moving, within a couple of seconds, you're going to forget about it. You're going to be on to the next situation, right? And pop your next trick. And so that's kind of how I try and deal with the situations as they come up. For the most part, I ride by myself 90 something percent of the time. And that's because I enjoy the peace and quiet. And yeah, that solitude is very healthy for me. Um, Actually, if I go to a number of rides with a lot of people, I just get exhausted, right? Because you're trying to memorize everyone's names, and be polite with everyone and capture footage, and it's a lot, So it's much easier for me to ride at my own pace by myself, and I love it. I wish I could introduce more people to it, you know, and and in a small way, right? Here's a nice example. My boss was having his birthday a couple of years ago, and my coworkers were like, "Well, what should we get him for his birthday? Should we all chip in? We can get him something good." And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get him a Big Ripper, which is a 29-inch, a 29
yeah.
inch big BMX." And so we bought him one for his birthday, and then we invited him out for drinks and surprised him with it. Right? We rode up on the bike and was like, "Here's your new bike, right? Here you go." And so he takes it out on the weekends with his son, and he pops wheelies,
Nice.
and his kid is kind of like, "Whoa!" So I that's awesome for me that I was able to share that. And it's just, at its core, I think our bike life community is full of wonderful people, adults trying to show their kids a good way. We've got some bad apples in it, like you would have in some other communities. but we do what we can to just keep it moving. And I know there's a lot of mountain bikers that are listening to your podcast, and a lot of road cyclists, and gravel cyclists, uh, and I would encourage them. If you're curious about bike life, uh, go to my page on Instagram or look up the hashtag people of bike life, or the other hashtag bike life tips. Those two hashtags are ones that I've tried to focus on for the last 3 years. Um, I guess almost all the content associated with those hashtags is mine for the most part. Um, so you'll get to see interviews with people that are, everyday folks that, maybe they drive a truck, or maybe they work. Well, I've got some teachers, I've got an HVAC guy, I've got people that, come from all backgrounds, uh, talking a little bit about their job, and or just showing why they ride their bike or what their bike is like. And these big BMX bikes are so simple. The technology is very basic. If you have a mechanic background like myself, where you've got a lot of cars and motorcycles, and the complexity of those is huge, right? It adds to the pressure and stress of your life, thinking, my God, I've got to spend thousands of dollars to get this car or truck where I want it to be, right? And I got to memorize all the different ways that these pieces go together and come apart, and think about how to modify it. And then you get to a bicycle and you're like, oh, there's, let's see, bearings in the neck, and bearings in the wheels and the hubs and the bottom bracket. It's that's pretty much it, right? Like, it's, oh, pedal bearings. Yeah, you got some pedal bearings, and maybe you got a couple more bearings if you bought some super fancy brakes. But yeah, bikes are so simple in comparison, right? And to be able to get out on something so simple and find so much enjoyment in it is amazing to me. So you know, I I I bought a $500 bike case at one point, I think in 2020 or 2021. And now I've brought my bike to Honolulu and Phoenix, Los Angeles, Mexico, Atlanta, Orlando, Florida, New York City. I go to New York City every year, uh, because we ride through all five boroughs, and it is mayhem. Uh, it is the most exciting ride of the year. It's a 1 day ride. Uh, it's got a random start, right? You go to a social media feed and they say, hey, we're going to announce where the meetup is at this time. And then when they drop the announcement, you've only got like 45 minutes to get there before the ride launches. And then you've got 1,000 people bobbing through the five boroughs in New York, crossing the bridges and going through tunnels. And it's that is a wild, wild ride, because there's nothing like riding through New York City, right? With the tall buildings and the brownstones and just the different views and the
Yeah.
water and the people. It's just the energy is different. Uh, Trying to keep pace with the folks that ride in New York. The only way I can describe it is they walk fast, they talk fast. When the light turns green, they're gone, right? And they don't stop for red lights either. So uh, yeah, riding in New York is something special. So every year I try and go out there for a couple of days, so I can do 2 or 3 days riding before that big ride out, and then I do the ride out and fly home the next day. But I love bringing my bike everywhere, and I think that's another cool thing that when you visit a different city or a different place, you can't really get all the smells and the feeling of that area unless you're on your bike. And all
Yep.
bikers know this, right? So why wouldn't you try and bring your bike with you? Um, when I go to these places now, it's like, oh my God, $75 extra per trip on Southwest. And in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing,
Yeah.
right? You'll look back on it and go, man, I had 4 hours free in this city. I wish I'd had my bike. I would have just ridden around and smelled the different parts of the city and seen things differently and heard things differently. And so I encourage everyone that's listening to think about bringing your bike the next time you go on a trip, because there's no better way to see the world than from the saddle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I actually just got back from a trip to New York. We went out and did the five borough bike tour, and
Oh, you did?
it was awesome. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And but to that point though, we rented bikes out there, and we just went
Okay.
cruising around through the city through the weekend. And to your point, it was amazing. Like the smells,
Right.
the sights, the sounds, you just experience that energy at a different level, and it was just
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. But what I wanted to say though, Liam, is that I don't know if it was your content or some other content that I saw, some different write outs, but a year ago, I bought my first 29 BMX
Okay.
bike, and that's what I ride every morning. I ride with my son to school. He's in first grade, and I'm popping wheelies as we go to school. And I'm telling you, I feel like I'm a kid again. I have multiple bikes as well. I have road bike, mountain bike, cruiser, e-bike. Car. I have way too many bikes, but my favorite bike is my 29-inch BMX.
No
Absolutely,
way.
hands down. I love
Do
it.
you do you also have it in your head? So this is me. Like I love like when you're riding, like you'll see kids look over, either out the car or out of the school
Yep.
bus or whatever, and they're just like, "Oh, he's on a bike. I wonder if he's got some work. I wonder if he can do something with it." And when you just casually pop a wheelie as an adult, the kids just lose their minds. They're
Yep.
like, "Oh my god!" Right? That's incredible. And God, I love just kind of doing that and then encouraging them. I always stop and talk to kids when I'm riding and say, you can do this too. You just have to practice, right? You have to believe in yourself. And I think I wish I had more people telling me that when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think it's our responsibility as adults and parents now to pop wheelies for these kids, right? And it's not like quote unquote showing off, like my wife says. It's to encourage those kids that they believe they can do it,
Yeah.
because it really is. I mean, how much did you crash when you were learning how to wheelie?
Yeah. Yeah. You go down a few times for sure. You
Yeah.
gotta be patient. You gotta be cautious for sure. But yeah, there I had a couple tailbone smacks for sure. But like you
Yep.
said, to your point, nothing too crazy.
Yeah. You just I mean, if I think if you go in learning how to wheelie and you know that okay, it's possible and it's likely that it's going to happen at some point, you can wear padded shorts,
Yeah.
right? That's a great way. I wish I'd had padded shorts when I was learning, but I think there's a skateboard slash bicycle protection company called Old Bones Therapy
Oh yeah,
that
yeah,
makes
yeah.
knee braces and elbow braces, and they actually have a pair of shorts they call impact shorts that have hip and butt protection. So I wish I'd started with that, but that seems like a great way to go. I think snowboarders also have protection pants that would be good when you're learning how to wheelie. Then there's the advice of, oh, take a backpack and put a pillow in it, and you think, why would I need that? Like, am I going to smack on my back? Like, I'm not worried about that. And then the first time you actually really smack and knock the wind out of yourself, you go, oh, that's a good idea. But I never did it, right? I never rode with a backpack. I figured that I would take my lumps and just keep moving.
Yep.
And I think in the back of your mind, you always think that, oh, my reflexes are going to be fast enough. I'll jump off the back of the bike, or I'll be able to catch myself. And for the most part, you do. But training your mind to slow down time so you have these split second reflexes, that's the that's really all it is. You condition your body, but while you're conditioning your body, practicing, your mind is getting just a tiny bit faster and faster and faster at managing the inputs and seeing, oh, my body feels this way, I need to correct this way, right? Or I'm going too far back, I got to feather the brake a tiny bit. Or because it really is, in all senses of the word, it's a balancing act. You don't pop a wheelie and then just stay in that sweet spot. You are managing yourself in that sweet spot constantly. It's never the same. You can't just freeze your body in that perfect position. The other thing I think about is you're balancing on one wheel on a bicycle, and the surface of the earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour in whatever direction it's going, and then the earth itself is rotating and we're spinning around the sun, and then our whole like solar system is flying through the galaxy, right, at thousands of miles an hour. And it's just mind-boggling to think that of all these different celestial bodies moving at such a speed, here we are trying to just master balancing on one wheel. And I mean, there's so much beauty in the simplicity of that yeah, I hope more people, get excited about learning new things. Just trying, right?
Yeah.
And wheelies are a perfect way to do that. It's a great way to connect with the youth. It's a great way to get in shape. Like, it takes a lot more core condition than you'd expect to be able to ride a long distance wheelie. Uh, I've tracked my heart rate across different activities, and you definitely have that elevated heart rate when you're in a wheelie, even if it just looks like you're cruising. I don't know if it's because your mind is working harder or you're trying to do more things, but the heart rate is definitely up when you're in a wheelie.
Yeah. No, and again, to all those points, you put it beautifully of just time can just stand still. So, whether it's learning how to wheelie or just getting on a bike again, because that's my big thing too that I talk with a lot of people is just like, hey, when was the last time that you just rode a bike, that you just went for a ride
Mm.
around the block? And for a lot of adults, it's years that, they
Yes.
haven't gotten on a bike. And it's been really fun as I've been riding to school more with my kids. And there's a couple more dads that are like, hey, we want to ride with you guys too. I'm like, come on, man, let's all ride together. So, just creating those little communities. And that's, again, what you illustrate so well, the community of bike life. And I love how you ask people, what's your favorite part about bike life, right? And you
Oh,
get
yeah.
some amazing answers. I wanted to ask you, what are some of the most memorable answers that stick out to you or that have really, connected or struck
Sure.
you?
So oftentimes when I meet strangers, I'll just run up to them and say, "What's your favorite thing about bike life?" And I've heard the family aspect. One kid was really, I I was kind of teasing him. He kept getting in my way in New York City, and I kept thinking, "Oh my God, this kid just keeps getting in my way." But he wasn't doing it maliciously, and he wasn't trying to be on camera. He was just, I don't know, for whatever reason, like, just kept getting in my way. But anyway, I approached him on camera, and I was like, he's an Asian kid, so there's not too many Asian kids that I've seen in this community.
Yeah.
So I approached him. I said, "Hey, what's your favorite thing about bike life?" And I thought I'd get some answer, like you know, I'm one of the few Asians or something. And he goes, "My favorite thing was learning how to fall because it taught me how not to be a wimp." Right? He
Mm.
used much harsher language.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he goes, "I really needed to learn how to not be a wimp,
uh,
and crashing my bike and trying these tricks and falling taught him how to do that." So
yeah.
that's what he loved the most, was that he learned this amazing self-confidence and this amazing introspection into who he was through all his failures on the bike. And so that kid was very meaningful for me, uh, because his answer was just, it was immediate, no hesitation. He thought the process of crashing taught him how to be a man, and
Yeah.
it wasn't masochistic or anything. It was just like, wow, who would have thought of that, right? I never get answers like that. Uh, Oftentimes I get community. They love the community. They love the exercise. They love, customizing bikes and. But that was a good one, for sure. He loved the process of crashing, and how it helped him develop into a young man. So
It's awesome.
yeah, that might be my favorite one.
Yeah. Well, and to that point as well, again, when I talk with a lot of people, like when you choose to ride your bike to a place versus just drive, right? Like you're choosing a little bit of discomfort. You're choosing a little
Mm.
bit of a harder path. And so again, that voluntary discomfort helps with that neuroplasticity, right? It teaches
Yes,
you, hey, I can get through difficult things. I can get through hard things and I can enjoy it as well. And I wanted to tell you something as well too, because I've been following your stuff and I was reviewing some stuff last night before this interview. And I was
sure.
reminded of one of my favorite reels that you put out there, um, of you and again, this came to my mind today because I had a lunch break. I ride my bike to work and I was riding. I was like, all right, I got this taco spot. I'll ride down there. I'll get some tacos and I'll come back. It starts raining like crazy,
Oh my
raining like
goodness.
crazy. And so there's puddles everywhere, and so I'm reminded of your reel of, hey, you're never too old to ride through the puddles, like
Right.
how did you say it? Like just enjoy it, just be out there.
Yeah, if you see a puddle, you have to go through it, because
Yeah,
you never know if that could be the last puddle you ever go through.
yeah,
Right? I'm at an age now where, you know, folks that get into their early 50s, that's when you start to see more instances of heart disease,
yeah,
or strokes, and just, it feels like that really is a crest, right? You cross the 50 mark, and it's, most people go really downhill, or actually it's after
yeah,
30, it feels like. But
sure,
um tomorrow's not promised. So if you have a chance to just have fun, like, you should take it, because there's so many people with regrets that, they wish they had done something. And just the playful innocence of doing something like splashing through some pedals, or puddles, and trying to wheelie through in and out, and just have good simple fun. I think it's something that we've lost, because our society today always has us chasing something, whether it's buying a newer car, like, oh, you don't have a Tesla yet, or or just trying to keep up with the Joneses in some other aspect, it's like I'll still ride my bike in the rain because I can train myself with different skills, and I can still splash in the puddles. And if I can have a great time, then I'm winning.
Yeah. And just that simplicity, like you were mentioning, it's so good for our minds and so good for us to just take a breather, take a step
Yeah.
back and just enjoy the simplicity of riding a bike, and takes us back to those younger years as a kid. And so again, Liam, I love what you're doing, man.
Thank you, Zach.
Keep up the good work. Where, I mean, you shouted out your Instagram, but any other place that people can find you, or anything that you
That's
got going on?
That's the main place. I mean, I have some content on Facebook, but I don't appreciate like the. It seems like Facebook has a lot more toxic folks that just kind of chime in with like gnarly comments.
Sure.
And at least with Instagram, I feel like I can build a better community there. Most of the kids that showcase their talent, right, that film tricks or do tricks, are more on Instagram than they are on YouTube at this point. Uh, I guess we're kind of the dark or the dirty secret of biking because we don't have any big corporate sponsors. We don't have any big contests. Uh, Even though they sell thousands of BMX bikes, big BMX bikes every year, right? And on any given day, I could post that, hey, I'm in New Orleans. I'm in this city. Who wants to ride, right? And kids will come out of the woodwork, and so will adults, right, on their big BMX bikes. We're there. We just don't have the corporate support because of the bad behavior that we've exhibited in some other, aspects. And we don't really understand, I think, how to take it to that next level like skateboarding did, right? Once you started seeing skate contests, then you
Mm,
started seeing more of the culture, and more of the companies come in and, I don't know, capitalize on the popularity to some degree, but it legitimized the sport. You saw with BMX, right? They had racing, and then they had tricks, and then they had X Games, and we're not at that point because our tricks, I think, are a little bit more simple. They're easier to learn. So I see kids sometimes that have only been riding for 2 years, and they're exhibiting skills that I'll never get even in 20 years of practice. Uh, but for the most part, you don't see people taking ten years to build their skill set the way you do like on a proper 20-inch BMX or a mountain bike, right? We don't have the Red Bull Rampage for bike life. We have EBRO, which stands for Everybody's Ride Out, which is that one day crazy ride in New York City that always ends in Harlem. Uh, so I wish we had a bit more corporate sponsorship, and I wish we had more good press. And that's only going to start by people like you and I riding our big BMX bikes out there and showing other adults that, hey, this is fun and it's healthy and we're not assholes, right? If you want to
yeah.
get one of these bikes, I can point you towards 5 different manufacturers today that put out multiple bikes, right? There you've got SE bikes, Throne cycles, Mafia bikes, Collective bikes, GT bicycles. You've got uh, Sunday Bikes, you've got Fit Bike Co. I mean, there's so many manufacturers right now and places to buy bikes online. You can have a bike sent to your door. Um, for less than $1,000, you could be out there learning how to wheelie tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um, and I will also say that the personal satisfaction of learning that skill for me was so impactful. It gave me another boost of confidence. Like I knew I could change careers. I knew that I could live in different cities. I've done that before for years. Like I've proven myself in different ways. But when I taught myself how to wheelie, I would just smile because it's such a ridiculous talent or skill. It's a ridiculous skill that it's not. There's no job uh, application that says, "Can you wheelie?" Right. I mean, it doesn't matter on every sense of the word. It doesn't matter, but it is the process of teaching yourself how to wheelie that yields so many benefits for the rest of your life. You have to be dedicated. You have to be consistent. You have to persevere. You're going to get hurt a little bit. You're going to have to come back from that. And you have to stay focused on the goal. And the goal is learning how to put yourself in a position of imbalance. So you're constantly managing. If you want to keep that wheelie going, you have to put more effort into the wheelie. You have to get in better shape. You have to keep that wheel up at all costs, right? So you teach yourself a different mentality in the process of learning how to wheelie. And now, right, in my corporate world, if I had to choose between two identical candidates, and if I knew that one of them had taught themselves how to wheelie, definitely. Because I know that their mindset is a little different,
Yeah,
right? I know that they're going to challenge themselves. I know that they're okay with challenging themselves and getting a little uncomfortable.
yeah.
Um, so maybe who knows? Maybe we can start putting that on job applications.
I love it. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And again, you're helping promote again that positive spin on it, and you're doing your part. And I love what you're doing.
Thank you,
Keep it
Zach.
up. Yeah, for real. It's
What
it's
city
it's
are you in Utah?
yeah. I'm in Utah. It's called Orem. So it's
Orem.
like kind of like half hour south of Salt Lake City.
Okay.
Really close to Provo. So I'm trying to do my part as far as like joining all the different bicycle advocacy groups and getting more bike lanes and just promoting biking in general out here. And it's been really cool. It's been really cool to get involved with the community and ride as much as I can and show
Yeah.
the kids that like, hey, this is a viable option to getting around. So I'm all
Is it?
about.
Do you have enough weather for the kids at BYU to be able to take these kinds of bikes around? Because I would think that you got a bunch of college age kids. That would be a really great resource to like, hey, you guys want to learn how to do tricks and stunt and stay in shape
Yeah,
before the winter season? Like
for sure.
that could be an option.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and where I'm at, we're right in between BYU and another university called UVU, and they're the
Okay.
two biggest universities in Utah. So there's a lot of college kids, a lot of people wanting to get around, and so it's
Oh,
it's cool. There's a cool movement of people just wanting to bike around, choosing to do that versus driving, and so it's been really fun to be a part of that movement as
yeah. You
well.
got to encourage that. Do you have like bike party events monthly? So I've at least we have them in the Bay Area in different cities, right? There's one that takes place in Oakland once a month. There's one that takes place in San Jose once a month. And same thing in San Francisco. It's a little bit like critical mass in
Hmm.
that you get a lot of different styles of bicyclists together: lowriders, BMX, track bikes, road bikes, gravel bike, any kind of bike. But these people come together at night and they usually meet at some place where there's public transit. So at least in the Bay Area, we meet at the BART stations and we'll go on this circuitous route. It's usually 15 miles, 20 miles in the evening, and you end up at another public transport, so a different BART station. So you could BART back to the start, or you could ride back. Uh, but these parties have people with lights on their bikes,
Yeah,
and they're carrying loudspeakers and they're playing dance music. And there's usually a couple of stops, whether it's at a taco truck or something. But these bike party events are it's like a party on wheels, and I don't know any other way to describe it other than uh, they're fun because they're not very fast paced. There's not a lot of people doing tricks because it's dark, and there's just too many bikers that are not familiar with people doing tricks. So you just kind of out there to ride and listen to
yeah,
music and see the neighborhoods, and each month it's a different route, and it's a really fun way to get a lot of diverse people together that normally would never see each other in their cycling life, right? You have adults that, oh, they commute to school, right, or work, and then you've got other adults that they're bike messengers, and then you've got other adults that they just want to ride their big BMX bike, they want to ride more. And then I've seen the lowrider bicycles, which is a different community unto itself of really creative metal work, and unusual bikes, and they just want to, everybody's looking for an excuse to get together and put some miles on,
yeah.
right? Because there's a natural high that comes from just exercising. And so to get together and have the music and the lights, it's fun. It's also nice to ride at night. It's cooler, and the lights are a fun touch. So um,
I
yeah, if
love
you
it.
if you come across something like Bike Party or Bike Party Salt Lake or something, then
Yeah.
check
Well,
that out.
I'm gonna look some of that up, but also, I mean, we're always looking at different ideas to do different group rides. So,
Yeah,
we've done a couple, family type of rides and stuff like that. But I'm always open for new ideas and to get things going. So, I love
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
Liam,
Zach,
again,
thank you.
thanks. Yeah. No, thank you for sharing your experiences. And again, your content. Keep doing what you're doing. And we'll be sure to stay in touch. All right, man.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you very much, Zach. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about biking and how it's helped me, find a better balance in my life.
I love it. I love it. Great
Right.
example. All right. Well, have a good day.
Thank you, Zach.